Welcome to my YouTube channel Karma Betrayal Story. Join the journey where karma meet betrayal. If you like interesting stories, please like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel Karma Betrayal Story. Now we are going to start our story.
Have you ever discovered that the people you trusted most had already decided your future without asking you? Imagine hearing your own son calmly telling someone that you had to be sent to a nursing home because you were standing in the way of his plans. He forgot to hang up the phone. Every word reached my ears. I said nothing. I acted like I knew nothing. They thought they had won. They sold the house for $890,000 and left for a business trip believing they had erased me from their lives forever. But when they returned and tried to unlock the front door, they froze. The key would not turn. On the doorstep was a single envelope with my handwriting. The moment they finished reading it, their smiles disappeared and the neighbors heard screams that echoed through the entire street. Stay until the end because what happened next taught everyone that betrayal always comes with a price. For 42 years I worked every single day to build a safe home for my family. I missed birthdays because I was working overtime. I skipped vacations because every extra dollar went toward paying off the mortgage. When my wife was alive, we always dreamed that one day our son would inherit not only the house but also the values we tried to teach him: kindness, respect, gratitude. After my wife passed away, the house became more than wood and bricks. It became the last place where I could still feel her presence. My son Michael visited less often after getting married. At first I told myself that life was simply busy. Then the visits became shorter. Calls became rare. Every conversation somehow turned toward money or the value of the house. His wife always smiled politely, but her eyes wandered through every room as if she were measuring what could be sold. One afternoon Michael called while driving. He thought he had ended the call after saying goodbye. Instead I heard every word. He laughed and said, "Dad is getting older. He has to go to a nursing home sooner or later. Once the house is sold, everything becomes easy." His wife answered that they could finally buy the luxury home they always wanted. Michael replied that his father would never agree willingly. They would simply convince him it was for his own safety. I sat frozen in silence. The call finally disconnected, but my world had already changed forever. I never confronted them. Instead, I quietly gathered every document related to the property. I met with an attorney and reviewed every legal detail. Years earlier, after my wife's death, I had transferred the property into a living trust with clear conditions that protected me during my lifetime. No sale could legally remove my rights without my written approval. They never bothered to understand that because they assumed I was too old to notice anything. Over the next several weeks, Michael became unusually attentive. He brought groceries, asked about my health, suggested retirement communities with beautiful gardens. Every smile now sounded rehearsed because I knew the truth behind it. Eventually, he convinced me to sign what he described as insurance paperwork. I politely refused and said I wanted my lawyer present. His face changed for only a second before the smile returned. Then they disappeared for several days. Soon afterward, neighbors mentioned moving trucks outside my house. I returned from visiting an old friend and discovered strangers walking through the property with measuring tapes. One investor explained they had purchased the home through a complicated transaction involving an investment company. They believed everything was complete. My attorney immediately stepped in. The trust documents clearly established my lifetime occupancy rights. The investors had relied on representations that ignored legally recorded protections. They had to resolve the dispute through the parties responsible for the transaction rather than forcing me out. Meanwhile, Michael proudly called relatives announcing that the house had sold for $890,000. Everyone congratulated him. Nobody asked me how I felt. A few days later, Michael and his wife flew overseas for what they proudly called a business celebration. Before leaving, they never visited me once. During those 2 weeks, lawyers worked nonstop. Financial records were examined. Documents were reviewed. Every signature was inspected carefully. Eventually, the investment company reached a settlement. They recovered their payment from those responsible for the failed transaction. My occupancy rights remained protected. I also decided to sell the property myself under the trust terms to a retired couple, who promised to preserve the home exactly as it was until I chose to move voluntarily into a smaller cottage that I personally selected. Before leaving, I packed every family photograph, every letter my wife ever wrote, every memory worth keeping. Then I placed one envelope on the front doorstep. Inside, I wrote only a few paragraphs. "Dear Michael, you believed this house was your reward. You forgot it was my lifetime of sacrifice. You planned my future without asking me. You measured my value by the price of these walls. The house is gone because I chose peace over greed. You lost nothing that belonged to you because it never belonged to you. Real inheritance is earned through love, not expected through entitlement. Take care of your own future because mine no longer depends on you. Goodbye. 3 days later they returned. Neighbors later told me exactly what happened. Michael stepped onto the porch smiling while carrying expensive shopping bags. His wife joked about decorating the living room. He placed the key into the lock. It would not turn. He tried again. Nothing. Then he noticed the envelope. They read every word together. Silence lasted only a few seconds. Then shouting filled the street. His wife screamed that everything was ruined. Michael pounded on the door demanding answers. The new owners calmly introduced themselves and explained they had purchased the property legally after all previous issues were resolved. Michael kept repeating that it was impossible. The police eventually arrived after neighbors reported the disturbance. Officers politely informed him that he was trespassing. For the first time in his life, Michael understood that actions have consequences. Months later, he requested to meet me. He looked exhausted, not because he had lost a house, because he had lost his father's trust. He apologized without excuses. He admitted that greed had slowly replaced gratitude. I listened quietly. Forgiveness is possible. Trust takes much longer. We now speak occasionally, but our relationship began again from zero. Some wounds heal. Others become reminders of the choices that created them. The greatest lesson was never about money. It was about remembering that parents are not obstacles standing between children and an inheritance. They are the reason that inheritance exists in the first place. Money can buy comfort, but it can never replace loyalty. A home built with sacrifice is worth far more than its market price. The moment children begin treating parents like obstacles instead of family, they lose something far greater than property. Respect cannot be inherited. It must be earned. If this story reminded you to appreciate the people who sacrificed everything for you, then never wait until it is too late to say thank you.